Now let us take a look at an integration question which is slightly longer, where part 1 we need to do a differentiation. Now I have changed the expression over there, square root of 3x minus 1 raised to power 5 as a fractional power. So I'm writing it as power of 5 over 2. Let's do a product rule over here. So product rule, you do not have to memorize any formula. You differentiate the first item, write it down, that's answer 2. Copy back the second item. Since it's a product rule, the center is going to be a plus. Now we differentiate the second term here. We're going to bring down the power 5 over 2. Then reduce the power by 1. So 5 over 2 minus 1, which is 2 over 2. So I left with 3 over 2 here. Differentiating inside bracket, 3. So that's my differentiation of the second term here. So I'm going to copy back the first term, which is the 2x over here. Now just to let you see, this is how you do a product rule. This is a differentiation. Just copy. This whole thing is a differentiation. And this one is copy. Okay, now let me write down the simplification. I'm going to take away the bracket and just write 2 times 3x minus 1 power of 5 over 2. Now this one, be a bit careful. There are a few terms here. 2 and 2 cancel. So I left with 5 times 3, which is a 15. Be careful, I still have the x over here. They're going to write it down, followed by this bracket here. I simplify so that it's easier for me to see. Next, I'm going to factorize 3x minus 1 with the lower power, which is 3 over 2. So what's left then? Take this out, I'm left with 2 here. This power 5 over 2, taking out 3 over 2, I left with power 1. And the next term here, I take this whole thing away, I left with plus 15x. Right, the next step, I'm going to do this square bracket by expanding the 2 inside. So what you can see is that I will have 6x here plus a 15. So I will get a 21x. So distributing 2 inside here, that's a minus 2. So I write it in front and I write this bracket at the back here, which is 3x minus 1 power of 3 over 2. Okay, the reason is that I have the question there that's written that way. Therefore, I'm moving this to the front. Okay, so that's part 1 of the question. Now let's take a look at part 2 of the question. We are asked to find an integration. So let me write down here the part 2. We're going to integrate to 3x minus 1 raised to the power of 3 over 2. This is the basic integration. We're going to raise the power by 1. Adding 2 over 2 here, this is going to be a 5 over 2. Now you be careful, you divide by 2 things here. First is the power, which is 5 over 2. And also the coefficient of x here, which is a 3. And integration without limits here, let me put a plus c at the back. So what's after this? You type this whole chunk here in your calculator. Your calculator will give you 4 over 15. Let me just quickly show you what I mean. So that's, you type that. I'm just flipping the 3 and the 5 over 2 in my calculator screen there. So that will lead you to 4 over 15. And I'm going to write back this bracket. Raised to power 2 plus c. Okay? So that's for our part 2. Now we're going to use these two answers to help us with part 3. Let me erase and I'll show you part 3 on the board. Now, let us take a look at part 3. So I have highlighted something over there. So if you differentiate the question and you get the result, which is the answer, and if you do the reverse, integration of the answer will get you back the question. So that's the first step that I'll write here. Integration of 21x minus 2 times 3x minus 1 raised to a power of 3 over 2. Remember to write dx equal. You will write back the question, which is 2x. I'm going to change the square root again. So I'll write it as fractional power, 5 over 2. And remember to check the question at part 3. We have 2, 1 there. So I'm going to insert 2, 1 at the integration part here. For the right hand side, we're going to write square bracket. I'm going to insert 2, 1 on the right hand side. So next, let's see how can we do this question here. I'm going to take this whole thing and distribute to this bracket, so to this 2 position. And I'm going to rewrite again. What I will get here is that I'll have 21x multiplied by this bracket. And of course, remember integration sign, close it with the x. That's a minus here, minus 2, 1. Then I have 2 with this bracket. And remember integration sign, so close it with dx equals to, what happened on the right is you can substitute 1 and 2. If not, you copy back the same thing. For me, I will just copy back the same thing first. Let's take a look at what can we see now. This term here is what you need to find in part 3, but it's not 3, it's 21. So we're going to think of 21 as 3 times 7. So I'm going to adjust this one here. I'm going to write 7 outside of the integration sign and 3 inside. And the next thing over here, observe that this is the exact expression in part 2. So what I'm going to do now, part 2, we already have the answer over there. I'm going to use it. So I'm going to write the exact same answer as my part 2. But you're going to remember that this is the answer, which is the integrated answer. So now this limit 1, 2 here, you're going to put a square bracket and write it here instead. So I'm going to copy back the right hand side. Next step, I need this as my subject, so I'm going to move this entire square bracket over the right. I'm going to move this down now. Moving this negative is going to be a positive. Next step, I'm going to do substituting 1 into the x position minus substituting 2 in the x position, and same goes to this one here, substitution of 1 minus substitution of 2. What I'm going to also do is to shift the 7 after I substitute. So the next step here, what I have here is substitute 1 here is 2 times 1, that's a 2. Substitute 1 here is 3 times 1 minus 1, so that's a 2 as well, raised to power 5 over 2. So minus 2 multiplied by 2 here is going to be a 4. Substitute here, 3 times 2, 6 minus 1, that's a 5, so raised to power 5 over 2. And since this is the addition sign, so it's very safe, I'm just going to write down addition. I'm going to multiply this 1 in here. So I have 2 again. So since it's the addition, so you substitute here, there's going to be a minus here. I'm going to copy back the 4 over 15. Substitute 2 in here. Again, I'm going to get 5. So this whole thing on the right hand side, I'm done with substitution of 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So on the left hand side, I'm going to move away the 7 to the right. So what you will see here is that I moved it as division. So type the whole thing in your calculator. You should be getting the answer over there, which is negative 32.2 in 3SF. So that's all for our part 3.